Joining me from the cold of Washington is Sky News host and top election guru, I'd say the best in Australia now, Tom Connell. Tom, great to see you again, even though your ears are freezing off. There was such a culture of change today, with outgoing President Joe Biden forced to watch and listen to his legacy, such as it was, being trashed by Trump right next to him. What struck you most about today?
Well, it struck me how quickly change happened, because 4 years ago, Joe Biden was being sworn in, having been the Democratic hero. He came back. They said, we need someone to beat Trump, and he did that. And 4 years later, he watched on, surely thinking he was the biggest reason why Donald Trump won this time. First of all, the two big factors on inflation, so much government spending. Yes, it was hard to figure out how to get out of the COVID slump, but a lot of spending. And then also the borders, and it gave Trump such an in, particularly for him. And then, of course, how long Joe Biden hung on. It didn't really give anyone else a chance, or the Democrats have a chance to have primaries. So how quickly things changed for him. And what about Donald Trump? 4 years ago, he was ostracised by many in the Republican Party, particularly after January 6. Even the midterms, Andrew, it was a lacklustre performance by the Republicans. People thought, well, Donald Trump, the jig is up. He's now been sworn in as the oldest ever president on inauguration day, beating Joe Biden by 5 months. And then how much it's changed as well going back further. When Donald Trump was here in 2017, there were massive protests, 500,000 in DC alone, at least 1 million around the country. This time around, they struggled to get to the number they wanted, organisers. They said, we'd be happy with 50,000 because they wanted people to care again, and they struggled to get that. That was on the Saturday, the main march, the People's March that we were at. So how much has changed in that relatively short period of time? And the fact that right now the Democrats and the left in the US are just trying to get people to care again, or to want to beat Donald Trump, whereas 8 years ago everybody wanted to on the left within the Democrats. They just had to figure out how.
So it's so right. I mean, the opposition is now so demoralised, and meanwhile people that were against Trump before, like Mark Zuckerberg, Facebook, all the tech giants were there after some of them had been campaigning or banning him from their own platforms. I mean, it's extraordinary. He's so powerful now. But going back to the executive orders Trump signed today, a lot of them were predictable. We knew that, like taking the US out of the World Health Organization, which seemingly colluded with China at the start of the COVID outbreak. Others I've mentioned, and postponing now the ban on TikTok, and pardoning people charged and some of them jailed for years over the January 6 protests at the Capitol 4 years ago when Trump lost. Now, but despite that, this pardon of those so-called rioters, it was in fact Joe Biden's pardons today, 20 minutes before the end of his presidency. I mean, almost literally the last minute, which had turned out to be, I think, the most controversial. He pardoned his two brothers and his sister and two of their spouses for any crimes they may have committed, non-violent ones, in the past 11 years. And this seems to be because brother Jim especially was being investigated for peddling his brother's influence in China and elsewhere, and allegedly paying him hundreds of thousands of dollars as his cut. What do you make of this?
Well, it was extraordinary. I can tell you the reaction in Washington was shock. Some people said, hang on, is this real? The timing of it? All the names in there. Now, in terms of suspicions about it, you alluded to it, but there hasn't been, deep investigations or a lot of questions asked. So this straight away got people thinking, well, there must be some smoke here and some fire. So it's going to have the effect of a lot of questions being asked. The nature of it, the last-minute nature and the breadth of it is being described as the word we usually use, Andrew, for Donald Trump. Unprecedented, the use of this presidential power. There's some talk about whether it will call into question, which hasn't really been called into question so far, is the presidential power unchallengeable? Now, there's always so many different legal steps that can be taken, particularly in the US. So that's another potential avenue to go down. So yes, it was something that had Democrats privately so far, at least, shaking their heads. We haven't really heard much from Democrats, obviously, on camera today. So when they're asked about that, that will be fascinating, because previously others, including Joe Biden, have questioned the extent to which Donald Trump pardoned people. This was extraordinary. And I should mention, there are plenty of people in Washington that supported, for example, the January 6 committee having those if you like, preemptive pardons because they say, well, they were doing a job, Donald Trump will go after them. Whatever you think of that, there were a lot of people in Washington that said, yep, that fits the normal basket, if you like, even if it's at a sort of at the margins, but not this. This seems to go a next step. But as I said, I think it's going to put a focus on this. This is not going to go away. Yes, they've been preemptively pardoned, but people will be digging into this now.
Well, I think it's actually looking very shameful because if Biden had earlier pardoned his son Hunter for the same alleged reasons for 11 years, which covers the period he took a job on a gas company board in Ukraine, despite having no experience in that industry, when his father was vice president. That was very neatly, that 11 years. And Hunter had his father help him with deals too. So it's a question of influence peddling to explain why Joe Biden has been on a government salary almost all his life, happens to be extremely rich. But anyway, we shall see. Tom Connell, thank you so much for testing out global warming in Washington for us.